I interviewed Theodore, the director of Web3 for Off the Grid, and asked the tough questions about the game's launch. Be sure to stick around to the end. You won't want to miss this. I applaud him for not dodging any of my questions. All right, so first thing, I was under the impression the game was going to be released about 2 months from now. Why was it chosen like kind of yesterday? The only reason I asked that question, I think the content is great, the balancing is great, the gameplay is great. Every person I've talked to likes the game. However, having made my video to like increase your FPS, where I lower the settings in the config, I've had hundreds of people commenting, like crying that they can't play the game because it's not optimized yet. So I guess the question is, was it for like to test your server load, or did you feel like this was like the best time to release the game because you have no competition?
Issue number one, optimizations, what people are experiencing, etc. So anyone that has been in the Pioneer program, which we started over 3 months ago, knows that the performance has increased tremendously over the last 3 to 4 months. So that's one. There's been an insane amount of optimizations done. However, having said that, to create the best looking battle royale game in the world on Unreal Engine 5 is insanely computing resource intensive. In addition to that, we're talking about developing several separate, completely standalone versions of the game that the team, 340 full-time employees, have to manage, update, etc. Now, having said that, people that are playing on PlayStation or Xbox for that matter, they have, for the most part, a very, very steady 60 frames per second now. Right before the launch, we bumped it, I think, from 45 to 60 on PlayStation 5. It runs beautifully now. On PC, many people that have the minimum required specifications do hit a solid, 50. People that have the recommended specifications hit over 60. Very, very important to remember. This is not the full release. This is early access. International early access, where the biggest request that our hundreds of thousands of people that were waiting for this game already on the waiting list without any marketing had was, please give us international servers. We had people in Australia, in Asia, all over the world saying, we can't play because you have a cutoff at 200 milliseconds. So we launched thousands of servers worldwide. We went from 3 days a week, 8 hours per each of those 3 days to 24/7. And we absolutely now need to load test everything to the max. You can't go out with a game that's optimized to the gills that was just played by 30,000 people when you're trying to reach 100 million gamers by the end of next year. It's just not feasible. So understandably, PC players, which is obviously the most difficult issue to tackle because there's so many other factors that come into play. Somebody comes in with a 4080 card, which should run this at 100 TPS plus, and says, oh my God, it's stuttering, it's tearing, screen tearing, etc. And then we're like, what you're paying? Oh, 195. But we can't talk to everyone individually out there. So it's going to just take some time. People will build guides for what settings, are optimally to run. We will continue optimizing the game. Some people, of course, come into our Discord and say, hey, I'm running on a 1080. Why is it only 20 frames per second when such and such game is running at 70? And we're like, hey, here's a link to the Epic store that lists what the minimum requirements are and what the recommended requirements are. But guess what? We're still optimizing further. So for better or for worse, that's where we're at. And given that this is an early access product, we feel that the amount of people that are able to play far, far outweighs the people that cannot play, just the way it is. And some folks, of course, are going to have to upgrade. If you're coming in with a 7th generation Intel CPU, and we recommend 12th or higher, and I think the minimum is 11th, there's nothing we can do, right? Even if you can play other games at 50 frames per second, there's just nothing we can do. And a lot of games that are pushing the envelopes with regards to graphics are going through these issues. That's just a very, very natural progression to go through. And that brings me to the last bucket, which is, of course, the question about why now. And that, of course, has several different factors attached to it. Number one, as I already mentioned, as you already kind of alluded to, we do need to be out there and testing with hundreds of thousands and millions of people to get this all fine-tuned. But number two, of course, we do look at the release calendar of other Web2 games, because make no mistake, we're not competing against Web3 games. We're competing against the top 5 battle royale games that are currently out there. So Obviously, we're looking at the calendar, the release calendar of other games. We're looking at what else is going on, and at some point in time, you just have to say, okay, now it's go time. That's it.
I just want to follow. Thank you so much for answering thoroughly, Theodore. I try to join spaces. I don't want to put people on the spot, but like I gotta ask what the public sentiment is. So I really appreciate you not dodging a single question. I'm very impressed. One
Thank you
thing
so
I'll
much.
just say, since you are the director, right now the game is heavily CPU bound. I found you can get away with running like a 30 series, but you do need that 12th gen or higher, or 13th gen CPU to run it. And I don't know if you have considered this, but in the config, you can lower the settings lower than low, which would be very low. I'm assuming you didn't like that because it wasn't the optimized version of the game. But I made a video on that, and thus far it's helped about 10,000 people play your game across YouTube and Twitter. And people are over the moon, super happy with everything gameplay related thus far. So if you guys keep doing what you're doing, I am incredibly bullish on the game. And thank you so much for not dodging a single question. I applaud you for that. Many people cannot do what you just did right there.
Thank you so much, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching. Please slap that like button, hit that subscribe for more content coming your way. And a reminder, I'm live 5+ days a week on my Twitch, twitch.tv/AndySlaps. Come by, have a good time. Feel free to ask me any questions about the game at all. I can help you out over there. And another reminder, if you still have bad FPS in game, click the video on screen now where you can get the best optimization and settings in all of Off the Grid history right now. Go ahead, have a nice day.